Hi there, I'm Ruth Watson and I am the founder of Ecological UK. Ecological UK is a family run sustainable brand, so there are different arms to our business which I'll talk about later on in the session, but I wanted to talk to you today about how we can build sustainable business brands. So sustainable twice in both senses of the word. So how, as a business that is really passionate and value driven in terms of ethics and environmental issues, can we balance that off with running a business that is financially viable and also in terms of being able to operationally scale and run a business that's going to be around, not relying necessarily on pots of funding, and how do we get an invested audience to engage with that, whether they are clients, volunteers, service users. How can we make sure that we're giving our business or our kind of organization the best possible chance? So I suppose it makes sense for me to explain a little bit about who I am and what we do as a business. So as you can see, my background is very much not in running a business. I travelled a lot when I was younger, when I was at uni, when I finished uni. I travelled around. I was a teacher, so my background's in education. I never wanted to run a business. I didn't have any business skills or business training at all. Met my husband, continued to travel. Eventually my children came along, my three wonderful children, and actually my eldest, that you can see there, Squishy, not his real name, but it's what we call him out in the world, to protect him. So Squishy is very much our nature lover, our animal lover, and as he was getting to sort of 3 years old, he was becoming more aware of animals and extinction and animal issues, and obviously we'd always try to encourage him. As a family, we'd already made a lot of eco changes and we were sort of out doing lots of walks now in nature and things like that, but it was something that had really taken a hold in him, and he kind of looked at me in the eye and said, "Mummy, what are we doing about this?" And we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to spread the word, the message about eco-friendly living and about sustainability. And we thought that we could do that, my husband and I, as teachers, through education, through going into schools and going into workplaces and doing educational workshops and talks and things like that. That was the aim of the business when we set Ecological up. We came up with the name Ecological because it kind of took elements of the languages. So ecological just means ecological in other languages. So we used that to kind of reflect our journey, where we travelled, things we picked up from different cultures, different people. But we thought ecological was good because even at that point, it wasn't something very, very niched and very specific, so it could go wherever it wanted to go. But then, of course, as we know, so that was in September 2019, and then in the February, March of 2020, lockdowns, and we had basically only done a couple of things, a couple of events. The business wasn't even really running. I didn't really know what I was doing. I hadn't had any business training. I just jumped straight in there, got on social media, posting about what we were doing, making every mistake in the book. I didn't know what my brand values were. I didn't know who my ideal client was. And then once we hit lockdown, obviously there was no way that I could run the business as it was. So we had to have a big stop and a big rethink and a big shift. And that's when we moved into retail. So we moved into sustainable retail, and predominantly at that point it was e-commerce. And also local deliveries because we were classed as an essential service. And then I'll tell you a little bit about how we've developed from that, doing little bits of retail online, into the brand that Ecological is today. This is a lot more of what Ecological looks like today. It's a lot more cohesive. There are many arms to the business. So yes, we do workshops and talks and demos, which you can see over in this corner, my husband there holding our baby. The kids are very, very involved in the business, and that's something I'm going to talk about in terms of one of our brand values is about it being family friendly, everything that we do. So that's why we kind of have the kids very present in the business, a lot of colour in the business, a lot of sort of real life eco family living is present in everything that we do. But actually, as well as doing those demos, we have other elements to our business now. So you can see from bits here, we have we do a refill shop, like a zero waste. We do pop-up events, markets. We do talks in schools. We do talks in workplaces. We have a podcast where my husband and I talk about sustainable issues. He's very much the follower and not the leader when it comes to sustainable and environmental issues. So we talk about things like that. I've also guest spotted on other people's podcasts and blogs. I write a blog. I also vlog. So we have a really good social media presence in terms of video content and a group where people come in there and can support each other and talk to each other about changes and things we could do. I've been on BBC Breakfast News Live, talking about the economic impact and how that's impacting on businesses like mine and local economies, and also our products were featured on Lorraine, so you can see here one of our t-shirts. So we also have a sustainable fashion store, which is a closed loop. This t-shirt that I'm wearing that actually does have our logo on. So everything's organic, cotton, vegan, renewable energy, factory. So we have a closed loop circular fashion model, as well as the sort of everyday retail that we do. We also run a reusable party kit, so we're part of the Party Kit UK network. So we have a party kit of things that we hire out to families, firstly as an income stream for the business, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go on, but also because it helps as a first step to engage some of our ideal clients who are maybe not ready to make some of the bigger eco swaps, but can absolutely see the value in a reusable party kit rather than using disposables. You can see there our Instagram. So it's taken me a long time, but with Instagram and Facebook, I've realised that that's a really good way for me to reach a really broad audience and to bring people in. So the business now, and this is why in a way I'm kind of glad we went with the business name that we did, because it's not specific to education or retail. Actually, it encompasses quite a lot in there. But it's taken us 5 years to get to a point where we have now this very solid and robust brand. And it's interesting because when people see us out and about now and we're wearing these, people see that and they think, oh yeah, that's ecological, or they say, oh, you're Ruth, you're the eco lady, and it's become now part of the fabric of our local community and where we are. And when we're out and about, people know us and they know what we do. So it shows that with the right sort of tips and training, you can absolutely, there's just me, I don't employ anybody, it's just us as a family, but you can absolutely build up with relatively little stress quite a cohesive brand that people will buy into. So one thing I always tell people is we need to tell stories. Stories are what connect human beings together, and in terms of people understanding who you are as an organisation and what you do and buying into that, telling stories is so important. So when it comes to me and my business, I know it's slightly different to what you're doing, but absolutely having your face, a little bit about you or the backstories of people, making connections, telling stories about what's happened rather than just showing. So you always hear, don't you, like, show somebody what it's like, let them feel it, let them experience it. And for me, that's very much what I wanted to do with the business, because what put me off other eco businesses that I saw was it was very much like telling or pushing products, and I didn't want that. For me, I wanted to build up the trust with people that I was an eco expert, that I'd done the research, that I knew what I was talking about, that I was doing it, and that I wasn't perfect, and that we still didn't have it all nailed on, and people actually really resonated with that and connected with that. So that has really helped me to retain and attract customers and clients. But it's also reassured me, when I've had a wobble about competitors, what they're doing, or things haven't been going so well, because it doesn't always go well, and sometimes I get that imposter syndrome that's kicked in. But actually it's reminded me that I do know what I'm talking about and my values are right and I'm behaving congruently. So how can you become seen as an expert then in whatever you do? For me, I would say, and thinking about this in your own context, it's about sharing value. You might think it's boring, but actually my most interacted with stories, blogs and posts tend to be what I call the ecological experiences, where I'm just showing what's going on in our everyday lives. So things like how I use a shampoo bar, how we compost, like how to compost. It might be, you know, how we've done an eco-frugal birthday party. People like that because it's something that they can understand, that they can connect with. It's not necessarily preachy, it's not necessarily full of stats and climate science. Actually, it's something that's way more accessible to them, but they can see that actually I am doing what I say I'm doing, and it's underpinned with that research and that knowledge. So people like things like what I'm having for dinner on our social media. Like yesterday I posted what we were having for dinner and how that had come from Olio and about food waste, what my favourite eco brand is to dress the kids in, or what charity shop haul we've got, and about fast fashion. So there's always the values underpinning what I'm posting about. If how I clean my shower, honestly my drains get more exposure than some celebs in terms of natural cleaning products and why we use those and the impacts those have on aquatic life. So you can see that everything we do actually does have those environmental issues underpinned. But if I went in there with a post of why we use this and not that, it would be a lot less interesting, or a lot less you know, kind of connect people than actually when I go in from a personal angle and show them the stuff that we might actually see as mundane about what we do in our jobs or in our lives actually is the stuff that people really like to see. We are all looking for that human side and that human connection. So for you, it might be showing a day of what you do or what's going on, or people's, you know, what they're doing around, you know, just little things that you might not think that people are interested in, but actually they're the things that people want to know. Then obviously when I'm out and about and face to face with people, it's about chatting with them, it's about making those connections. And it's funny because actually I also get the impression from people, in fact people explicitly tell me they feel like they know me. So when they're then coming to an event or coming onto a site or coming to the shop, those barriers are broken down. So it's not like they don't know the processes or what to do. Actually they feel like they know me. They're not frightened to ask for advice, they're not frightened to ask for tips, ask questions, but also they ask about the kids, they ask about work, they ask about what's going on, because they see me as being a human. They ask about how the business is doing overall. You know, I've been very honest with them about when there have been tough times, because they see me as somebody who is approachable. And yes, I am, you know, somebody who knows about eco life, but also that I am, you know, a human being, a mum, a wife, a business owner, a friend, all of those things. And they see that, because when they resonate with you and they see you as someone who is walking that walk, and it's not just a hard sell or a hard push, they are much more likely to engage with you and return to you. They've built that relationship with you. So even though you're putting that out there to a lot of people, actually they think that they have a connection with you. So we often get that thing where people come up to us and say, you know, oh hi there, how are you doing? And I'm thinking, I don't know who you are, but they feel like they know me. I didn't necessarily see myself as an eco expert. I had to and still have to do a lot of research into climate science and environmental issues to keep up to date and to make sure that what I'm saying is right. And sometimes even saying, you know, I'm an eco expert is a little bit cringy, because I know that there are people out there who are far more knowledgeable than I am, and far more sort of impressive activists, but actually that's part of the appeal, I guess, that I have with my clients and customers, that I'm just authentically me and I don't pretend to know everything. I'm just giving my take on it, on how I'm using things, how I'm doing things. You know, when we're planting things and it doesn't go right, we'll tell people, because actually we don't want them to think that it's easy and perfect all the time. But actually, just by us giving some recommendations or advice or tips, we've kind of established ourselves as the go-to person or business for people's eco needs, which has made that kind of much easier for us to then run a business. It's kind of just woven into the fabric of our lives and what we do on a day-to-day basis. So for us, everything we've been doing is about building that social capital with people that know, like, and trust, those networks, you know, going out there when we don't know things actually, and saying to other people as well about, you know, referring to other organizations or groups or people, and building a network, work with people, collaborate with people, whether that's other organizations or your ideal clients and customers. Actually, you know, there is real strength and real hope in having networks of people who are all underpinned by the similar sort of ethics and values. We might not all have the same approach in how we do it, and that's great and that's fine, because actually we don't want everybody, because everybody will have different things that they connect with. So it's good that we're all different and we all do it in different ways. And if you try to just copy me, that probably wouldn't work. But actually creating networks and connections with other people where they can maybe come on a site and do something for you in return, or you can then guest on their podcast, or they can write a blog for your website, and just create these networks with that all have common goals, actually really helps you to build a personal brand, because it is about building a personal brand. Even when you're working in an organization, it's about having that identity that's really clear. And lastly, I just kind of want to say, have fun. You know, it's not easy. Sometimes it can be disheartening when you don't necessarily get that interaction or that engagement, but it's always important that you're kind of having fun with it, being playful with it, and enjoying what you do as well. So how do you go from having a business to kind of building a brand? Because that's what we want to think of. How can we create what we do into a brand and a personal brand, so that we stand out from the crowd? Because it's very noisy out there and we want to make sure that we're standing out. So the first thing we need to do is we really need to understand our why. And I don't just mean that surface why do you do what you do because I'm told to, or because I need to pay the bills or whatever, but the real why. And there's some kind of research out there that suggests that there is 7 layers down of the why. But one thing that I would advise you to do here is think of your business pillars. So go back and think of maybe 3 to 5 pillars that will underpin everything you do in your business. So for example, you know, for me, and this will help with content, for me it was very much around family. So family was really important. I wanted it to be built around my family but also appeal to families. I wanted it to be easy, everyday eco. So although I was reading a lot about climate science and donut economics and all of these kinds of things, actually I wanted it to be very much an access point for people, so that it was very easy, it was very everyday, it was about the things that we could do and embed in our lives on a day-to-day basis. The third thing was I wanted it to be hopeful. So there were a lot of accounts out there that were sort of highlighting the issues and the problems in a very problem focused way rather than in a very solution focused way. So for me, it was about trying to be as hopeful and positive as we could whilst still highlighting those issues. For me, another thing was understanding that cost of financial barriers might be a thing for people. So I wanted it to be as frugal and you know, sort of economically valuable as possible for people. And also very key for me was that I am Northern. I am very proudly Northern, and I wanted it to retain that Northernness. So I wasn't going to change my accent. I was going to highlight the local area. So I was going to highlight places around the north and specifically the northeast that we were visiting, things that we were doing with the kids, sort of that local Tarian sort of vibe to it. So that is what underpins my business. They are the key values that are embedded in my business. And if you go and look at my social media or our website or our blogs, one of those, if not all of them, or more than one of them, are embedded in everything that we do. So it's important for you to think about what that why is for you, to really engage with it and to really dig into that in everything that you're then putting out there, that comes through in all of your content, all of your marketing, even when you're shaping programs and things like that, that you're keeping that why in mind, because that is the story that your ideal client will resonate with. And hopefully, if you've got your values right, it'll be much easier to attract your ideal client. So as a starting point with those brand values, you might want to go back and think about what is your passion, what is your knowledge, what is your skill, because that's going to be a good starting point, but also you're going to be able to use that to build the know, like and trust factor. And then you need to find your niche. There are lots and lots of businesses that are out there doing what I do. But you need to really drill down to focus on your ideal client's needs. So for us, it was about accessibility, affordability, about, being able to have that sort of approachability as well, for want of a better expression. So understanding what their problems were, and then actually you're kind of then selling without selling, which is what I've come on to there, because actually you are asking them, what do you need? What are your problems? And then how can I solve them? So by asking them and involving them in that process, by sharing the value and knowledge, you actually then sell without selling. You're not doing a hard sell, you're just showing them that what you do and what you know is going to solve a problem in their lives. And that might not be a problem in terms of a product, it might be in terms of confidence or loneliness or skills or mental health. So actually the selling without selling then comes because they will then give recommendations to other people. It will create a connection with you. It will create value and give value to what you do, which is important for you and your own self-worth, that you know that you're actually helping people and not just selling something to them that they're not getting any benefit from. You're problem solving, you're becoming that go-to person, so that then when other people ask your customers, clients, service users, where can I'm feeling lonely, I'm struggling financially, I want to be able to grow my own produce, or I want to be able to understand more about reusable period products, that they say, I know exactly the place you need to go, and then they direct people to you, and that really helps you out. Because actually when you don't have a huge marketing budget of a huge marketing team, let your ideal clients who already have that connection with you do some of that work for you and do some of those recommendations for you. So I used the phrase on the last slide, the know, like and trust factor, and that's all well and good. You might have heard that before, but what does that actually mean? So know is, what do people know about you? What is your background, your lifestyle, what are your interests professionally, personally, which organizations do you belong to, have you been trained, what do you support, what are your values? All of these things raise our know factor, and it's important that we try and fill in, as an organization or as an individual, as much as we can for people, because it goes back to what we were saying about building that social capital. So it could be as easy as sharing your face, your voice, your knowledge, how you are in your everyday life. All of these things can make a big difference to how people engage with you. But obviously there's a caveat with that, that you should only share as much as you're comfortable with. So for example, like I said before, we don't share the kids' names on social media or in anything we do. So even when I'm doing this to you, I haven't used my children's real names. We don't share our address anywhere, and we don't share the schools that the kids go to. Although people know where we live locally, we would never tell anybody that, for safety and security. So think about what your boundaries are. You're not expected to share everything and know everything. It's just about how much you are comfortable to put out there, because the more you can put out there, the more social capital you can build. So then we get on to like. So people like people who are helpful, they like people who are kind, they like people who are not pushy. So if we apply that kind of networking, and I use that word loosely, attitude, so what can I share with other people? Can I connect people? Can I be a social connector? So when people ask something, can you signpost them to an organisation or to someone else? Can you go into other groups and forums, maybe online, and answer questions in there or be helpful in there? Can you be generous with your knowledge or time or ideas in terms of, for example, me doing this? So sharing and giving back a little bit of your experience so that other people maybe don't have to go through the mistakes or the problems that you went to, because actually people then start to realize that you're a nice, genuine, authentic person who offers solutions and not problems. And then we have trust. So there are two kinds of trust. We have when people trust you as an expert. So we've already talked about that, where we're answering questions or giving helpful solutions. But actually, by giving good, solid answers, even if that's a good, solid answer, could be, I don't know the answer, and I need to signpost you onto another product or another business, you will still be perceived as a good person, as a genuine person, as an authentic, honest person. So that builds trust. And that can also be, though, from people then recommending you from other people, describing your expertise. So not necessarily your first interaction with them, but as a secondary interaction, that people say, oh, she's a good person, she'll put you in touch with this person. If she doesn't know, she'll find someone who can. So all of those things build trust with people. But also, and this is really important for me as a value-driven business, as an ethical business, it's about behaving in a decent way and having integrity. So it would be no good if I did this in my business and then went off in my personal life and did something totally different, or other areas of my life weren't ethical or moral. So actually for me, it's about, I guess, living with integrity, and living congruently. So actually this is a consequence of my behavior in my whole business. So not just thinking about your offer in terms of your product or service, but how do I speak to people? How timely am I in responding? What's my customer service like? What bank am I using? What pension provider am I using? What packaging am I using? How am I researching my products? Am I holding my, suppliers to account? Am I asking them questions? Am I asking questions of the people I work with, by association? Am I, speaking up and using my voice in other ways? My position through my business, am I using that to making sure that things are being done reliably and authentically and genuinely? Am I using reliable carbon offsetting? How am I delivering my products? How am I packaging them? All of these elements of my business for me have to sit very much within what I am doing, because I've built a reputation that is built on me being thorough and genuine and authentic. So actually, if you, I'm sure a lot of these things you're already doing, but if you're not, it's maybe worth thinking about the business as a whole and the elements of all your business. That could be pensions, that could be staff well-being. And if not, it's worth thinking about how you can maybe build some of those things into your business more. But it's not just about building them into your business, because I'm sure lots of us, you're already doing those things that I mentioned. It's actually about letting the world know that you're doing that, your ideal client, your customer, your network, saying, actually, we're using this bank, actually, this is why we use this courier, that's why I won't stock this product, that's why we won't run that project. Because it's about shouting about what you are doing, explaining why, so that actually that in itself is building that social capital. If you don't know, you could ask your customers in your network or your other businesses. You could ask them, what they want to see. You could ask them to recommend you, to connect you, but just make sure that all of these recommendations are genuine, bought in people who will increase your client sphere, so they're going to add to your business rather than take away. But when lots of people start a business, and I was very guilty of this, they jump in and think a brand is a name, a logo, a tagline, or even the product or service that they're selling, and they become very fixated on working in their business. But actually a brand is, I am my brand, my lifestyle is my brand now. It's so much bigger than that. A brand is an idea or a promise of what you are going to deliver to a target audience. It's a unique identity, it's a story, it's a connection that your customers will remember. And we always say, there's a saying in business, it's not what you say, it's how you make people feel. So when people think about you and your company, what do they remember about you? What do they say about you when you're not in the room? Because everything you do around your brand or around your organization should be reinforcing those brand pillars and that brand promise, and that should be from features to the physical attributes. You might already have an idea of what your personal brand, and when I say personal, it could be personal to you, it could be personal to the organization, but you should have an idea of what your personal brand should be. And before you need to set it in stone, you need to decide on a few other things, which I'm going to go on to talk about now. So, like I mentioned before, you've got to really nail your ideal client. Now, I use the words ideal client. It could be a service user, a customer, a client, a stakeholder, but you've got to really understand who they are and what they want from you. So, who is your brand's audience? Now, what's interesting about this is you need to really drill down. You need to really nail who that person is. And the way that I suggest that you do that is to create what I call, or what people call, an ideal client avatar. Now, it doesn't have to be a real avatar, but go away and create a person. You can draw them visually if you want to, but literally create that person in your mind in as much detail as you can. So who are they, how old are they, what gender are they, what ethnicity are they, where did they grow up, what do they do as a job, how much do they earn, what do they do on a weekend, where do they shop, where do they go on holiday, as much as you can. What do they watch on TV even. Have a really good think about who that person is, because once you have that person in your mind, that is the person that you are speaking to. Now, that might not actually be the person that you think actually in the first instance. So when I did this, I didn't really do any of the ideal client work at first. I was just trying, I think what a lot of us do is trying to speak to everybody, because fear of alienating anyone, we try and put out really broad messaging, really generic messaging. But actually, the more that I thought about my ideal client avatar and really nailed it down, the more I could tailor what I was saying, my content, my product ranges, my service offering, that I knew would appeal to that person. And I got a lot better conversion in my business in terms of sales and engagement with my services and that kind of thing. So create your ideal client avatar. Now, as a starting point, if you're really stuck, I would say go to your social media platforms as they are now and look at the people who are interacting on your posts, or think about people who are using your services. So think about now the person or the people who are coming back time and time again. They're really bought into what you do, they come to everything, or they buy lots of things, they engage with you on social media, they're recommending you to other people. That is likely to be your ideal client. So if that's an easy way to do it and it's a real person, then just always imagine then that you are talking or aiming at that person in your mind. So once you've got that audience, that ideal client, and you really focused in and niched on who that person is, then you need to think about where your brand positioning is. So where does your brand sit in the mind of that person in relation to other competing brands? So for example, you can ask, what problems are you solving for them? What solutions are you providing for that person that they can't get elsewhere? Because again, you can reinforce and use that as a way to obviously be driving more engagement and more traffic, more conversion for your business. So what problems are you solving? What is the core benefit of them using your business? So it's because you're local, it's because you're accessible, it's because you do specific activities that are suitable to their needs, it's because you offer a certain range of products, it's because you offer home delivery, it's because you have certain opening hours, these kinds of things. What is it about you that is going to make them want to use you? And then how can you support them? So that could be specifically with your products or services, but in general, so things about like giving those tips, giving that support, signposting information. So I'm going to give you an example which is based on Netflix. Hopefully we all know what Netflix is. So Netflix, using this brand audience, brand positioning, problems, benefits and support, I've written a kind of core statement nailing the ideal client for Netflix. So sometimes it's hard to find entertainment that everyone can enjoy on a Friday night. So that's the problem, and gives a definition or a frame of reference. For individuals and families with internet access, that's my target audience, Netflix, the brand, instantly streams numerous TV shows and movies, including unique content anytime, anywhere, core benefit. With one click, anyone can watch ad-free, HD, high-quality TV shows and movies. Support. So whether you're an established brand or you're going to be going through a rebrand, or you're looking at some of this as part of your ongoing improvement, you might want to go back and have a look and create yourself almost like a mission statement, just like that one, where you're thinking about who you're talking to, what the position is, what the problem is you're solving, what the benefit of watching your business is, and how you are supporting people. It can be really interesting to actually do this and to see whether actually what you are doing matches what your ideal client wants and what you should be doing in terms of your core positioning and messaging of your business. It's really interesting. If you've already got an invested sort of volunteer base or customer base, client base, ask them to do it. So who do you think our audience is? What do you think we do? What problems do we solve for you? How do we support you? What's the benefit of using us? Why do you use us? So then you can check with them and use that as a bit of a check-in to say, actually, is what they're telling me where I want to be in the market? Because if that's not quite aligned, then you might need to do some work on your brand and repositioning it to get the best success. So obviously I couldn't talk about building a brand, a sustainable brand, without talking about visual branding. So I've talked a lot obviously about core values, business pillars, personal brand, which are obviously really important and should be running through your business. But ultimately that logo, that visual branding, those fonts, those images that you're using, that you're putting out there on any marketing materials, whether it's social media or in print, are really important as well, because this is what you become remembered for and remembered by. People see this logo, like I said, and they know it's me. They see these colours. When people tell me when they're scrolling Instagram, they see this teal colour and straight away they know it's one of my posts. They see even when it comes to like the lifestyle pictures, you can see that I'm using that background, those colours, those fonts. There's a really consistent theme. It doesn't have to all be the same. There are tools out there that are really easy, like Canva. You just need a free account where you can pick your font colours, making sure they're really clear, really easy to read, really eye-catching, and also that they reflect your brand values and what you are trying to attract with your ideal client, that it's going to be attractive for them. So the way I set about choosing my branding was I created a mood board. So I looked around at things that were inspiring to me or that were underpinning my sort of values. So those things where I found pictures of bees, I found pictures of beaches, which is why it's not of green, it's more of the teal green. I found things with daisies and meadows and all of these kinds of things, animals, like turtles. My son is really into turtles. I looked around at books that I enjoyed, and it happened that a lot of them had these sorts of colours in them, you know, in terms of the greens and the yellows. So that's the route that I went down from my branding. I wanted a font that was really clean, really straightforward, because my kind of tagline is easy, everyday, eco. So I wanted it to be really straightforward, really clean, really easy and accessible in terms of the font that I was using. But even in my lifestyle pictures, you know, pictures when we're out and about, I will try and capture some of those colours. So I will try to capture those colours when we're out in nature. I will try to capture those when we're doing things with the kids in our clothing. That's why I kind of created these. And obviously on all of our things, that it has that very cohesive look. It just makes it much more memorable and strengthens in the ideal client's mind. They see it, they're attracted to it, they engage with it, and then when they see it again, they remember it, and it just strengthens those neural pathways. So visual branding is important, but it's important in the frame of reference of your ideal client and your brand values. If you don't have those two things created and aligned before you do your visual branding, then actually sometimes you can find that your visual branding doesn't support your messaging and what you're trying to put out there. So actually, yes, visual branding is important. It's not that it isn't important, but it's about how and where and why you use it. Hopefully that's been helpful. So now it's over to you. I hope you've had some top takeaways from that, from someone who's been there. And like I said, I haven't always got this right. I haven't always done it perfectly. I actually didn't do any of the brand pillar work and any of the ideal client work at first and got it very, very wrong. But once I changed my mindset and put these things in place, actually it worked really, really well. So now it's over to you. Think about what we've spoken about in this session today, the things that I've told you, and go away and reflect on what I call the 4 C's that you need to think of. Connection. So how are you connecting yourself and your brand and your product and your ideal clients? Just write connection, jot down any words that you think of in terms of how you could create connection, how you are creating connection, or what connections you have out there that you could use and facilitate to create an even better, bigger, more sustainable brand. Clarity, who you're trying to talk to, what you're trying to say, what your key message is, what your brand values are, and being really clear in those. It's not to say you can't talk about other things and you can't address other issues, but actually your ideal clients will come back to you because that's the message that they want from you. So be really clear about who you are and what you are trying to do. So jot down again anything under that you think would come under clarity. Courage. As climate activists, as environmentalists, we need to be bold, we need to be ambitious, we need to be unapologetic in our vision for the planet and what we want, but we need to think about how we can do that and how we position that messaging and kind of how we present that both in our visual branding but also in the products and services we offer. So maybe have a think about, in terms of courage, what message you want to push out there, what change you want to see, and how we can put action in place to get there. And lastly, confidence. You might not feel very confident in yourself or in your brand or in your customer right now. You might be a bit worried, you might have imposter syndrome, you might feel a bit shaky. But for me, confidence is about staying in your own lane, because if you think about the connections you have, the clarity of what you're trying to say, and the courage to keep your message strong and front and center in everything you do, then actually that should give you some confidence, it should give you some grounding and give you a good base to grow that confidence as a brand for your customer, but also in yourself about your brand. I hope that what I've talked about today has been useful and you've taken some things away. But please do get in touch with me if you want any more information or clarification on any of this. Please feel free to go and give us a follow on Facebook at Ecological UK, on Twitter Ecological UK, or at Instagram ecological_UK, or you can find all about us, our blogs and everything we do on our website at www.ecologicaluk.com. Thanks for listening.